Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, Cybersecurity in 2026, Trends that Will Shape the Future. Today, we have with us Neal Bradbury, who is our Chief Product Officer, Siroui, who is our Chief Information Officer, and Michelle, who is our Senior Vice President of Global Channels and Alliances. Before I let these three take it away with all of our predictions, I do have a couple of housekeeping items for you. So you know this webinar is being recorded. You will receive a copy of this recording along with some important resources from me tomorrow. Second, we do encourage audience participation. So at the bottom of your screen, there is a Q&A box that's there. Please ask questions. We are live. These are executives. They know their stuff. They would be happy to answer them live. And we also have reactions. So if you like what they're saying, you can clap, you can cry, you can party, whatever you feel. We love the feedback. And that's all from me. I'm going to go ahead and pass it out. I believe we are starting with you, Siroui.
Yeah, thank you, Ali. Well, welcome, Michelle and Neal, and of course myself. Very nice to be with all of you today. We have a lot to talk about. AI is on the tip of everyone's tongue, and it is certainly ready for 2026. It was all about AI in 2025. It was the exploration of how it was going to help our company. And now today, it's more about how can we run and maintain? What can we do with AI to make sure that it keeps us at scale and that we're using it the right way? So my section is amply called AI and automation as strategic enablers. So starting off strong with a couple of naysaying comments. I mean, I hate to keep us grounded in reality, but we kind of have to do that. Before I kick it off, though, Neal, Michelle, any comments to make about this?
I have lots of comments, but I'm gonna let you go first.
Yeah.
I don't want to steal your thunder, so I'm gonna let you go.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
Siroui is
I
the
mean, as the CIO, you're dealing with this every single day. Everyone comes to you and says, "Hey, I would like to do this," or "I have an idea." So I think you're well suited to kick us off on this one.
yeah,
Yeah.
as the chief cat wrangler for AI, Siroui, you've done a great job getting us all organized. But I was in a sales QBR the other day, and somebody put up a screenshot of the agents that just the sales organization is using, and I was like, "Wow, look what that's!" I mean, they keep just expanding, and that was just 3 months ago that we did that project. So I'm eager to hear how you're going to get us started.
Well, so we had a great year last year. We explored, we worked with a ton of different technologies. We've democratized to the best of our abilities. We've trained up our employees. Everybody's received at least 3 hours of AI training. And that's because we want people to get comfortable with these concepts. But what's interesting is that we need to get to a point of scale. So we've got a lot of POCs and pilots roaming around. We want to take these pilots and put them into production. But what these pilots are doing is they are exposing the complexity in our organizations. So we've got these small teams that are building these agents and using this technology, but it's with these, small, as you said, there's like a ton of technology and tools and solutions out there. It's this bespoke tooling with the democratization that we've supplied. And once you take these dozens of use cases across functions, the operational friction is starting to appear. So we want to make sure that we don't become bottlenecks, that we look at it all, fairly across everything, and we try to scale it as best we can. AI is changing our operational model. It's not just the tech stack alone, and it requires new way of working across all of our organizations. So enterprise-wide, from product, our business partners, Michelle, security, legal, the CIO org, all the rest of the business teams, we've got to kind of develop this AI ops shared operating model so that we can figure out a way of duplicating effort so we're not slowing each other down. And we want to basically take our experimentation and turn that into repeatability. So we are looking at AI like a factory where we've got standardized pipelines, we've got reusable components, and we are automating as much as we can in terms of testing and deployment. So every use case doesn't become a larger drag on funding, and we get cheaper and faster. So any thoughts before we go to the next portion of the commentary?
Well, I was going to say, I want to just double click on your training one. So look, a lot of people, they come to work and there's this fear out there with AI and what it's basically going to do. So I'll just address it right in the beginning. Like this to me is like moving from a flip phone to an iPhone. Like I don't, or an Android. I don't want to pick sides here, depending what side of the IT battle you're on. But this AI, the agentic technologies, are truly going to be like a force multiplier for our teams. And so for me, a lot of it came down to on the engineering and the product management side, it did come down to that training. And so like internal to Barracuda, we use Udemy, not an ad. Pick your own that you want to do as an MSP or as an IT shop. But for us, we curated based on the function that you were in the business, kind of like a learning path. And everybody had to do 3 or 4 hours of this learning to Siroui's point. But then what we did is we doubled down on examples. It's not that people didn't want to use it. They just needed to know how it fit into their normal day. And so that was pretty much how you spent all of 2024, 2025. Now what's happening in 26, it's how do you operationalize everyone's ideas now that they're starting to get it and they're effectively starting to move forward with it. So it's really been exciting. I'd also call out, as we get through a couple of the other questions, you'll see us hopefully touch on identity. You'll see us touch on, data. And I'm pretty sure Siroui is going to touch on data today, because to really make the agents as impactful to your business or our business, you need to give them context. It's all about context. Another way, or said another way, it's the data that we give these agents access to allow them to do their job. So, I got another comment on data, but Michelle, I'll kick it to you. I don't know if, this is resonating or not.
It is. You both are very unique partners to me in the way that I use AI to strategically engage with my partners, but as well as to help them be successful, right? So from a engagement perspective, Siroui, we've got to build tools that help connect this large ecosystem of disparate entities all around the world. How can we use AI to strengthen our relationships, to get deeper and fast and closer to our partners? So as we're building our systems and our engagement models and so on, leveraging AI as a tool to get closer is pretty important. And then with Neal, MSPs, having a built for purpose AI native platform is going to be table stakes for MSPs moving forward. They're going to have to adopt integrated platforms that streamline automation and use AI to streamline automation, security, compliance, all those things. So yeah, for me, that term strategic enabler is absolutely it, helping us get closer to our partners and then help them run their business more successfully.
Yeah,
Does
well
Barracuda
said.
have a name for its AI enabled platform, Michelle? You went there. We might as well just say, if anyone hasn't gone and taken your favorite web browser and pointed it to barracuda.com, you can learn more about Barracuda One. Back to you, Siroui.
Yes. Thank you
What is it
for
that we say? AI and automated, empowered systems and tools for engaging our partners.
That's it.
well said, everybody. Well, we have a question from Kelly about AI pulling all of the outdated info out there. And so that takes us squarely to our next bullet point here on the slide, which is data sprawl, inconsistent architecture, bad data, security gaps. Like taking what you said, Kelly, about outdated information, data sprawl is a thing. It's a real thing that we deal with, and data sprawl, but also data quality is very important. So we've got to look at these data situations and make sure that we understand them. Conflicting data pipelines and these inconsistent architectures, uneven security, they're causing us to have issues implementing some of our agents. So that's really important that we learn a way of optimizing AI through governance, through looking at risk profiles, figuring out a better way to organize our data, because garbage in, garbage out. So it's really forcing us to look at the way that everything is organized before we're starting to build on top of that. Like goes without saying, everybody of a certain age, even new companies, are starting to experience fragmented data sources. There's inconsistent integrations because of that. Also, you get one-off architectures that just don't, cause efficiency. They conflict with it directly. So that's really important to understand what your data models are. Try to drive down on standardization, because it's not only important that you standardize across your agent building, but your data is really the root of the success of all of your assistants, your chatbots, your agents, all of it. And then providing this substrate of operational governance is very important in order to get clean, stay clean, and keep it monitored well. So any thoughts about data sprawl, anything like that? Neal, I think you were going to go into some extra points there.
Yeah, I mean, a couple. I was going to say, look, and I'm okay telling, our trusted customers and partners on the line, like we ran into this internally over the last couple of weeks, right? For those that haven't pointed your favorite web browser to the new campus, take a look. We've upgraded kind of our documentation system, campus.barracuda.com. But behind the scenes, you basically have, Barracuda AI, which is in Barracuda 1, leveraging that content. And so internally, we even had to come up with processes for how do you make sure that you have a clean state of the documentation and that the agentic systems that we're building have access. And so, for me, it's one of those items. Kelly, look at what you're giving your agents access to, what permissions, what data sets. If you don't have a data security posture management tool, potentially look in one. It'll kind of tell you the permissions of certain stuff that you have. For example, on our side, we enabled Copilot for SharePoint or OneDrive, but we needed to be careful before we turn that on internally that I didn't have access to all the CEO's data, or Siroui didn't have access to all of mine. Like you have this HR data and you don't have the permission set up properly, and you start letting agents go in, or you're an MSP and you got a customer that says, I need an agent. And okay, we'll turn on the agents. But again, if the permissions on this data set, one, aren't set up properly, or two, it is stale data, the agents are going to give bad answers. And so I think this is where I default back to the professionals on the webinar today. You all know IT, you all know kind of where the data is. If not, we know that we can get a process or a system in place to go and find either where that data lives or how we want to get those agents access to the data. If you are a managed service provider too, I would think out, how do you potentially offer this as a service, and how do you monetize some of this as well? Because at the end of the day, your customers are going to need guidance. And of course, I have opinions on this, but let me tee it up with Michelle, because I know, Michelle, you've been traveling recently, and this may have come up at some of your partner advisory boards for how maybe MSPs are monetizing some of this AI operations or helping customers leverage AI.
Absolutely. I was at a partner advisory board in London just last week, and we spoke a lot about the opportunity around helping customers architect and navigate their AI systems. I think a little bit later we're going to talk about compliance and the operationalization, what AI ops looks like, and how they're going to package that up moving forward. I think additionally, the partners are starting to think about, they've got this system of record, right, that they've run their business with, their PSA and RMMs that they've run their business, and now they're looking at systems of action or systems of process on top of that. And when they're looking at technologies to add into their business, that's kind of the next area they're looking at. What's going to manage the action and the processes off the back of this data, which is their systems of record. So interesting conversations.
Which is cool too, because a lot of MSPs, as the maturity of the MSPs grows, or even IT departments, a lot of the run books are documented. So you take some of these new agentic technologies and you're just automating run books with AI,
Yeah.
right? And so it's interesting to see these teams are actually very well suited to start to leverage these technologies to become more operationally efficient. And honestly, at the end of the day, just provide way better service for their customers that they serve, and differentiate their business, which is neat to see how this is going to play out.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be cool to have an agent across run books, right? To help folks learn what is the most efficient way to run their business for highest margin. Wouldn't that be cool?
I think you just found a problem, Michelle. You could vibe code this on the plane this
I
week.
could.
I could see you
I'm
doing
leaving
this.
in a couple hours.
Just get your
Yeah.
favorite vibe coding app and make it happen.
That's right.
There's a question in here, which I know we struggled with as a leadership team, about choosing LLMs. ChatGPT, though Copilot rules the world, what are your, how did we get there in the end?
Yeah. So we're a Copilot shop. And, if you're deep in the Microsoft ecosystem, it really serves you well because it's going against your internal data that gets created by all of your Microsoft tool sets. It helps with workflow automation based on all that data. So if you are a Microsoft shop, it kind of behooves you to go in that direction. You're going to get the most out of it. ChatGPT is strong, though. If you're not a Microsoft shop, that might be good for you. It's certainly something that people kind of use more in their private life, at least if you're a Copilot shop at work. But you still want to leverage ChatGPT 5, which is available through Copilot. So we do have our own internal AI agent, and we leverage all kinds of LLMs so that our engineering teams can get the best of whatever is available as they are looking to create the next generation of our products. Neal, anything you want to add about that?
Yeah, we could do the whole webinar on this one. So for me,
Yeah.
this is like exciting. It's a nightmare. It's scary. It's great. Like, so keep in mind, you can ask LLM the same question. It might give you a different answer. So based on the context that it has. So how do you set up a testing framework to be able to do that? And so, of course, we're doing this, but our teams have really, the development life cycles back in the day used to be measured in months. Now this thing's in weeks or days. And so we can swap out a large language model within a couple of weeks, but then we need to make sure that our software development lifecycle can account for it. Bigger picture, what we've done is built some platform level services that almost like a large language model judge. So you got to look at a few things. You got to look at, how much resourcing or tokens is it actually using? That then in effect will get you the FinOps or the cost that it takes you to go and ask a question. And then of course, how do you go and scale these globally from a privacy perspective? And so on behind the scenes on the product team, we've done a lot of these works. If you look at our email portfolio, you look at Data Inspector, which is our DSPM, and we've been experimenting with different large language models to figure out how we make them as efficient as possible, but also make sure the efficacy for the amount of spend and the tokens that you're spending are there. And look, we have tried 3 or 4 in parallel, and we've picked the right model. New models come out, to Siroui's point. By the time you're listening to this in 3 months, we might be at ChatGPT 5 point something, who knows, right? But again, we've built systems internally to be able to kind of handle putting them all in parallel, doing a bake-off, and making sure that we can take efficacy combined with cost and provide a solution for our customers internally. And so it's exciting, and it's constantly changing.
Yeah. Thanks, Neal. So before we turn it over to Michelle for her talking points, I want to wrap this up by talking about compliance. So
Do we have to?
Well,
I know the
it's
legal
not that
team wants
fun.
us to, but do we really, really have to?
That's the thing, Neal, is that compliance can be seen as massive overhead and a big bottleneck. And don't get me wrong, it's something that I struggle with every day. So, compliance gets aided by some of the factors that we have going on at Barracuda. We have an AI council that I chair, and many participants across the organization help maintain our compliance and standards and keep us safe. But the point that I want to make to this group is that compliance doesn't have to be a big dud. We're trying to build frameworks so that people can operate safely and securely. A lot of times that gets missed in the process of trying to build the framework. But as you're doing it, communication is really important. We're all still people. We're all still humans that are leveraging these AI agents and all of the technology that's underlying it. So it's important to communicate why it is that you're building these frameworks, why it is that you are taking into consideration compliance. Because the other thing to note here is that global regulations are a real thing. So there's the EU AI Act that is, coming on strong. States like California also are developing regulations that we're going to have to fall in line with. So if you do business in or with companies in California, it's going to affect you. And there are all of these controls that are similar across many of these regulations. So as you're attempting to maintain how it is that you're going to comply, it's kind of good if you can figure out where they're similar across all. And that could be an automation, AI kind of opportunity in and of itself. So we want to make sure that we aren't doing this manually, that we're leveraging automation as much as we possibly can. Want to make sure that we reduce risk and keep our operations safe and secure, and allow people the flexibility and creativity in order to use all of this technology and make our products even more exciting. So before I turn it over to Michelle, I just want to see if there are any questions here from the group that we want to talk through.
There are a couple,
Yeah,
Siroui, and I think, as Michelle goes and talks a little bit about, operational and compliance challenges, it might be a great point to work in like Tim's question when you talk about the AI Council, because I was going to kick it to you because I don't think a lot of people might have that set up, but I think that's probably applicable after Michelle kind of goes through her intro of the operational and the compliance challenges, because that's one of the ways at Barracuda that we're addressing it.
Yeah, I think that the culture change that you both are really driving us through is going to be an important thing to talk about. So if we can go to the next slide, I'll just close out a little bit around operational compliance challenges with AI. We've established the strategic enabler, the human-driven AI component of building closer relationships, but you get to these bottlenecks, right? Through this rise of all these agents. Particularly, Neal, you were talking about the data component, and in real data intensive industries, it's going to be a lot harder without robust AI ops that we're talking about, as combined with paying attention to all those compliance challenges that Siroui was referencing. It's just going to get insane, right? And we won't be able to take advantage of all of these strategic initiatives. So if I can ask, I've been so impressed, not that I'm blowing smoke, guys, but I've been so impressed, Siroui, how you've really walked us through the education of what is AI, how are we going to use it, what is the AI Council, how do we get things approved at pace. I'd love you to talk a little bit about that. And then Neal, I'd like you to answer a question to me directly without asking Copilot, and walk me through how you're driving that culture team in your team.
Well, dude, it's fine. Well, let's see where we go first. But all you're trying to do is get your stuff prioritized right now by saying nice things on a recorded line. That's all you're doing right now.
That is true.
You have this entire list of stuff you want done. Sorry, Siroui, go ahead.
Flattery will get you everywhere. Let's talk about the AI Council. AI Council has been on my mind for over a year. So it came into the fold in not even 2025. It became it became a point of interest at the end of 2024. And we stood it up in reality at the beginning of 2025. So it's been operating for about a year now. I know many organizations, after we poll our customers, our partners, some of the people that I know in my own network and friends, an AI Council is becoming kind of table stakes for organizations of all shapes and sizes. And the reason why we have this council is because AI is becoming a strategic enabler for our business and the way that we operate. And we don't want to use tools that are going to put us at risk. We want to make sure that we have a process of reviewing them, that we stay in touch with our stakeholders, meaning the people that work at Barracuda that are leveraging these products and solutions, so that we can observe what's happening, make sure that we've got a stage set for approvals or discussions, and that we're looking at regulations that are coming down the pipeline from all places, EU, California, so on and so forth. And it's really a group of people. It's not just me sitting alone with a couple of my coworkers and the CIO organization. It is across our organization. We do have subcommittees as well. We have a product and engineering subcommittee. We have a go-to-market subcommittee. And then we have our AI Council in general. The reasons we have these subcommittees is because there are specific points and topics that are pertinent to either product or go-to-market. And we want to make sure that we've got specific oversight for those areas and that we're giving it the attention that it needs. So it's all about elevating the information, making sure that we have our eyes on this because it is so important. It's fun and exciting, but it gets real fast. And we want to make sure that we have greased the skids for all of the requests that we have coming in, and that we also have a proper way of, pushing back if we see too many of the same type of request or something that's going to put us at risk, or if we already have a tool that will serve the needs of what is being requested, or something that we might be able to build ourselves. That's all part and parcel of the discussions that happen at the AI Council level.
On the follow-up, Michelle had asked you on culture. And so this is a fun one. Like, I'll speak from the engineering and the product side. Are they being replaced by AI? No, you're not being replaced by AI. I go back to a typewriter versus a computer, the flip phone versus the iPad. This is just a force multiplier amplification of really, really smart people that basically get to do even more impactful things at a faster rate. It can be stressful sometimes, but we effectively had resistance. And so I have a couple of principal engineers. They're really funny. They're great. But it's like, I don't need that. I'm better. All right, I tried it. It might be cool. All right, okay, look, I kind of used it again and it solved the problem really fast. All right, you know what? I'm not going back. All right. And there's that progression of those 4 steps that you're seeing the engineering team go through, but it really starts from the top down. So when I didn't use ChatGPT or Copilot for this answer, Michelle, but we as leaders, right, have to embody or embrace AI in our normal day, in our work. Everyone picks on me internally. You all don't know this. You're listening like, oh, Neal just put it through Copilot or like looked up the answer, right? But I'm doing that on purpose because I want people to realize that it's a tool that's there for us to use, and we're going to use it. So then everyone kind of, as a leadership stack, needs to go and use it. And so you're seeing over the last 6 to 9 months, we've got more agents coming out in sales. You've got Siroui building a team that can go and build agents. And so we're building this culture of innovation. We're building this culture of not privacy to make sure that we're doing the right things, but it is this leadership. And if you're a manager of humans, like you've got to navigate the change that it means. The one thing for me is I do a lot of stories like not using my work data, Siroui, not using work data. You were now listening, our chief legal officer. So I hooked up the Instacart app to ChatGPT this weekend. And you're like, why, Neal? Because I don't know, I could, but it seems cool. I need to do grocery shopping. Let's make it exciting. And so what you can do is have a conversation with ChatGPT into the Instacart thing, right? And I can pick and choose. Hey, add Gala apples. No, those are really bad. Switch it to Fuji. And it'll do this like as you're actually conversing with the cart. Why bring that up? Neal, it's a useless story. Well, because it's what's possible. So you take that frame of reference and you apply it to a work. Hey, responding to a customer's RFP, responding to a Slack and we didn't know what the answer was, taking an entire document and checking it or succinctly making it executive able, right? Like it's this 35-page PDF. The worst thing people do when they do this, right? They download this document and they're like, "Hey, Michelle, look what I found on the internet." Great. Can you give me the tips and tricks from the 35-page PDF? This is where an LLM is amazing, right? It can take the document, it can summarize it. They send it to Michelle, and Michelle, look at the document. By the way, if you don't have time to read the 35 pages, here's a quick summary. And so it's just peppering the teams with examples, and they'll make their own connections. They're really, really smart, and they know the processes and they know the use cases. So they'll know the best way to apply it in ways that we in leadership don't even know that they're doing today, which we're tracking it. But being able to help them be better at their jobs. So that's, I mean, for me, and it's always my passion with this, Michelle. So it's contagious too from a culture perspective.
I have another question for you, Neal, which we didn't prep for, so don't get mad. But when we think about operational compliance challenges, to be able to take advantage of all the strategic value of AI, we talked about AI ops, we talked about culture change. Siroui mentioned earlier all the regulations and compliances that are just coming at us so fast. Do you have any advice or thoughts about how good product teams are going to adapt to all that's coming at us over the next year?
Yeah, so I don't know, good, great, amazing. No, we'll go with good. Good product teams.
Very carefully.
Yeah, look, we're a global organization, and I think there's a lot of it does touch on compliance and regulations, and then also just good software engineering practices. And so understanding your software bill of materials, understanding maybe any of the dependencies, understanding where code was written by AI versus where it was written by a human, making sure that you've got human in the loop at all times. So you're not just blindly checking something in that the AI model did. There is the kind of this review process. And so for me, it's always about how do we empower our humans to be amazing, assisted with AI. And so it's completely changing the software development life cycle. And so for us, it's all about a process. And if I was an MSP or I was an IT department, everything can be boiled down to a process. And so we're in the process now of mapping out a process of our process. Isn't that amazing? Mapping out the software development lifecycle and then figuring out where the AI fits. Where can it make us better? Where are our greatest weak points? What's that top of that transformation backlog? And so those are a few kind of the examples, but it's kind of fun. Like it's changing a lot of what we do, testing, checking in code. You can have AI assisted check all the code before it ever gets submitted. So there's a lot of really cool stuff that we're doing on our development lifecycle. That in itself is probably a whole nother webinar, Michelle, for individuals.
Yeah, the clarity of documentation of processes will allow you to be super nimble as these regulations change and
Yep.
certifications come in and all the rest of it.
We did have a question. I just wanted to
Yeah.
I just wanted to answer Matt's question because he was asking about, do large language models keep your data secure, or are chats possibly publicly accessible? And so the answer to this is it depends. So in the case of, like Siroui had mentioned, we use Copilot, Microsoft Copilot internally. We are on a private tenant. Microsoft, with our legal T's and C's, does not share those chats, does not share that data. It is our data. However, if you're on like a free version of ChatGPT, don't put work stuff in there. Don't put private information in there. Don't upload your MRIs. Like, again, unless you're doing a paid for version of ChatGPT or a paid for version of Google Gemini, like then you've got some legal protections. But if you're on the free versions of some of this type of stuff, the data is out there in the ether and it's training the next iteration of the model, and everyone can kind of go and access it. So for us, this is one of the main reasons we look at the AI Council, because what people, most businesses that we serve, Michelle, Siroui, and I, in our roles for Barracuda, you will consume most AI through a SaaS application. Pick your billing system, pick your CRM that you use for you or your customers. Most of the AI you will consume will be in that application. And so that's where the AI Council is important, because you're almost seeing what are all your vendors and what is your procurement process? What are they effectively going and doing? And so you gotta read the T's and C's on a lot of that. But hopefully that's helpful, Matt. In our case, we actually run a lot of the large language models in a private tenant in one of the in our public cloud environments, all secured. So anything that we do with those large language models, only we can effectively go and see. And I hope that also answers Aletta's question for, you saying if you ask an app an AI question, is it going to have access to the data? The LLM or these tools can only have access to the data if you give them access to the data. And this is one of the big things with Google coming out with an AI assistant over the last 2 weeks. It's now got access to all your Gmail, your Google Docs, etc. Really cool. Could be creepy depending what you have in there. You can now, Michelle can go in there and be like, tell me the restaurant last year I went to in New York with Siroui. And it literally can figure that out by looking at the context that's in email, right? And so that's an example where it has access to data. But keep in mind that context makes it a heck of a lot more valuable. So there's going to be a privacy trade-off that you have in your personal life and a privacy trade-off you may or may not have in your work life that you're going to have to balance.
Neal, that's a perfect segue to the next discussion topic around the evolving threat vectors and security imperatives in cybersecurity. Should we move on slides? Yeah, there we go. Over to you, Neal.
All you wanted to do was pass me the mic. That's how I feel that this went. It's like, Neal, you're up. I'm done with mine. No, look, you can all tell hopefully that I'm excited about AI, but I will also tell you this, as with all the good use cases of AI, all the bad cases also come up. And for as fast as we can go in software development, for as fast as we can go with protecting all of our customers, on the other side of that cat and mouse game that there is, you effectively have the attackers also leveraging generative AI. And so what we're seeing is a lot of these technologies, there's no more spelling mistakes in email. You'll actually laugh. We actually did a study on this. you can actually tell that an email is AI generated because the grammar and the spelling is so good versus bad. Whereas back in the day, an attacker, they would have scripts, but not LLMs that could go and translate languages and do stuff. And so statistically, the grammar is actually better on an LLM, just as a useless data point for all of you. But what you're seeing is in these phishing attacks, it's allowing attackers to use a large language model to make them super personalized. So LinkedIn, any other public data that you have, you can now make a lot of these attacks so much more powerful. And so the flip side of that is, how do we use those technologies to basically go and train our employees? Because the employees are kind of the most important thing that every business has, but at the same time, they're humans, they make mistakes. And so that's the team that we need to go and train to detect these type of attacks, to question what's actually going and happening. The third piece of that is the automated tools are changing. So like in our case, they would call it ITDR, identity threat detection and response. When we look at a business in our XDR team, you can enable kind of this automated response action for happening. So you detect something, and within seconds or minutes, you can basically take an automated response versus, hey, let's flag a ticket, let's take a look. We'll get to it in 50, 60 minutes. If you're lucky, maybe it'll be a couple hours. And by then, the AI, because it's so powerful, has done so much damage. And so that's an example where we have to train our people. The attackers are getting better, but at the same time, the defenses are getting better, where we're able to respond so much more faster. That's not proper grammar. I didn't put that in an LLM, right? To be able to go and respond to these attacks as they come in to protect users. And so, Siroui, what are you kind of seeing? And maybe you've got some comments on this one as you look at it from a Barracuda perspective.
Yeah, from a very personal perspective, and our employees, need to be very aware of what's happening. And like we do drink our own champagne, and it's great to know, and it's very calming to know that you and your teams are fighting AI with AI. I mean, it's the only way that we can go faster and do more to protect ourselves, because to your point, a message will come in and they will have secured a domain that is so similar to what you would expect from a real message. And the message itself is crafted so well, and it points to a website that you feel secure about using. And all of a sudden, you've shared all kinds of information and security about yourself or the company that is going to put you and your brand at risk. So I would say, like, just to take that one step further, the training part of getting people accustomed to what's coming down the pipeline from bad actors and threat actors out there, education of employees and of you in your personal life could not be more important. It doesn't go away just because things are automated, because we have AI, and because, you could sit back and relax and let it do all the work. We still are the humans that are at the root of, potentially opening ourselves to an attack. We are the weakest link, and it's really important that we are super vigilant, more than we've ever been before, to make sure that these very personalized messages that come to us, either through our email or through a text message or a pop-up or any other way, we have our eyes on it, and we are inspecting it and doing things differently than we ever have done before in order to protect ourselves and our brand and our companies and ourselves. So I just think it's interesting times to see what threat actors are capable of doing. And it is interesting, scary times.
No scary, it's exciting. Michelle, what are you learning from the partners?
I'm learning that those in an AI race, right, MSP and services partners in this AI race, that race will favor whoever owns the outcomes around keeping their customers secure across all these diverse evolving threats that are addressing them. So MSPs that can harness AI to automate those systems of processes and systems of actions to deliver successful outcomes, which means security and safety for their customers, are going to be the ones that win.
We also have some questions coming in here, and I'm not going to read them. I'm not going to give names because I'm going to blend some of this all together. Some of them are product specific, and for anyone that's asking a product specific question, Ali, our host, will help us at the end, and we'll get some follow-ups going so we can answer some of. And this is, Lonnie's question, Raymond's question, also awesome points and questions. Thanks for putting those in there. And if anyone else has a product specific question, you can throw it in the Q&A, and we capture them. It is a recorded webinar, but we can also track the questions, and we can follow up with our experts on our side. What I would say is I'm going to follow up on Tim's, and you're right. It's definitely about identifying, the supply chain, which is whether this was. So his question was this, is it considered when I went down my path of software development life cycles and bill of materials and building software, and even just how you build an IT system, what are those supply chain issues that come in? Who do you depend on? And so this is one of those things that we leverage the AI Council for, but this is also just good IT practice, understanding what is the supply chain of your vendors, what's the supply chain of everything that you're doing, and pulling it all together because, one kind of attack in that chain, and you absolutely do have an issue. And this is why we've put a lot of these policies and procedures and some of the security in place. The other thing that's not asked as a direct question was least privilege and identity. And this is changing the identity game. So Siroui and I no longer have to worry about, the sales team. We have to, using the applications in her world, we now have to worry about any agents that we've built. What does it have access to or not have access to on the actual network? And there are tools that have been and will continue to be created to be able to do this, but invoking least privilege across your entire estate, being able to, for example, not have admin privileges on any endpoint and using, PAM tools, right, to be able to go and elevate someone's permissions as necessary. All of that good IT practice that all of you that I'm assuming most of you do every day in, day out, will in this regard help you in segmenting a network and protecting the data as these agents start to become more and more digestible across the estate of the enterprise that you all work on. So for me, you're spot on, Tyler. This is an identity issue. It's not just humans accessing data. There's these agents that are also accessing it, and we have to kind of understand how to lock them all down and make sure we keep them all least privileged as much as possible. And Siroui, I don't know if you have any comments on that one.
Yeah, I did have one thing I wanted to say. So it's either, like a configuration in the tool itself that enables least privilege or some sort of role-based access. So between those two configurations, you're making sure that the right people have access to the data that you want them to have. Obviously, having access to the right data is going to make the experience as powerful as you mean it to be. And then going back to the AI Council and how this intersects with this point is that the tools and solutions that we are reviewing day in and day out, there's a constant stream of them because people are excited about using these technologies. If those technologies and solutions do not have the security built into them, at the foundational level, that is a red flag to us. We, do not pass go, do not collect $200. You're not moving forward with this product. It's important that we, have our own set of circumstances that we're living within, we've got standards that we must follow in order to keep our environment secure and our customers secure as a result of that.
Tim actually asked an interesting question, Siroui, and so and we're investigating this, Tim, as a product team as we go down this path. Is what if someone does get in? It's not a matter of if, it's when. You could have all the defenses up there, right? It's all about resilience nowadays. But someone starts asking a large language model or whatever your chat interface of choices for an organization, questions that just don't seem right. Like someone gets in as maybe a salesperson and starts asking questions such as, please tell me the entire network architecture of blah, 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 or give me the code. Obviously, there's then a role question mismatch, right? And so for us, this is effectively a web app. And so as we look at our SASE portfolio, we look at some of the XDR stuff, there's opportunities for us to kind of, Tim, help in these regards. So would appreciate any feedback you have, but you're spot on. The last thing you want to do is let someone get access and then they can kind of use it as a weapon within the environment, if that's where you were going with that question. So 100%, great question. Don has one on this one, Siroui, which might be interesting. Any challenges that you encountered that we weren't anticipating? And that's a vague question. So you could take that
Yeah,
anywhere you want. We could go culture with Michelle. I could ask Michelle the culture question, but anything that was a surprise and we just had to go and change it up on the fly.
so the way I want to answer this question may not be the way you would expect it, but so when we decided to open the doors to asking people what it is that they wanted to do, it was basically just carte blanche. What AI projects are you interested in? Like, where do you feel that you have pain points that AI might be able to resolve? And what we have now is a portfolio of projects that's very large. So I would say the challenges that I wasn't expecting is that people would have so many ideas that we need to look at, negotiate, filter through. Every idea is a great one. And so there's just, not an unlimited set of resources that are overseeing these initiatives. And to the best of our abilities, we're democratizing things, making people have the tools that they need in order to build these things themselves to the best of their abilities. But let's face it, not everybody is as adept as everyone else, which is why we have this small team of people who are being deployed to help build these for the various business partners. And so just trying to decide what's the right way that we want to focus our energies. We want to make sure that we look at all of the initiatives across the board and figure out what impact they will be surfacing when they come into production state. And we're trying to stack rank them accordingly so that we're putting our energies to the best place that we can. So to me, that's one of the biggest challenges that I was not expecting was the deluge of people's requests. But they're very interesting.
It's the great thing about it this year. Rohit, our CEO, talks about AI fairy dust. And what that really means is if you're working on something, have you considered AI to make it better? To make it, meet our customers' expectations and exceed them, to help our partners be more successful. And that just encourages everybody to think, another cliche, outside the box.
Yeah,
Another thing I
think
like,
creatively.
you asked us to challenge our team members to find an AI guru. So even in sales, we've got folks, thinking about AI and how to make that sales process or that partner engagement all the better. So it's been a very the openness of it is what is creating so much innovation, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's great
I
stuff.
would say for everyone listening, the recommendation, and you guys can disagree, I'm all for it. Like you need to have almost a scoring rubric or a prioritization framework, not to put my product management hat on, because you as businesses all have a direction, whether it's a school department, whether it's a state and local, local government, you've got priorities that you're being driven to by your leadership to move your organization forward. And those really dictate where you will spend your resources and your time in leveraging AI and automation. And so I encourage all of you before obviously it's all chaos in the beginning. It's really exciting, but then as it starts to become more formal and you start to move stuff forward, just making sure that the leadership team has a defined path of what is important and what are we trying to achieve. It'll provide a ton of direction for the IT teams on where they should automate and where they should ignore. But we've used that internally, and it has been incredibly helpful. And Siroui helps us do that.
Well, I think we can all say that we are the chief AI ambassadors of our company here. Yeah.
I don't know. All I keep remembering is I have to now have AI fairy dust.
It's when I get you some,
and sprinkling it everywhere.
Absolutely.
Tyler, you asked a good question, and I won't go product specific, but not most, I would say it this way. I can speak for us. In the application security portfolio, if a business is running a SaaS application or they're running some type of a chat interface, typically they will put some type of a application security, a web application firewall in front of that interface, which usually will prevent against prompt injection or being able to ask bad things. On the email side, it's the same thing. In the efficacy stacks, I can't speak for other organizations, just ours. We protect against this thing because we're looking for the bad. The last thing you want is something bad to do something as you're looking for it. So we've got tools on our side behind the scenes in the efficacy framework that we use to make sure that doesn't happen. But if you are listening to this and you're running some type of a website just putting a good web application firewall in front of it that is AI aware, whether it's blocking bots or bad bots, or being able to do that prompt injection type of attack and prevent you from doing it with the OWASP is important.
Very cool.
So I think this was my question. I think we've covered a lot of it. I don't know, do any of you have any final thoughts before Ali gives us the hook? I mean, we can pretty much go anywhere we want on this because, she hasn't cut us off yet, but I don't know if we want to go one by one and Siroui, if there's any closing or final comments that you have.
Yeah. Well, first of all, when we look at AI as a strategic enabler and we support it with great operations, with an excellent governance structure that you're constantly evolving and considering compliance along the way, you can stop being a source of friction, at least, from looking at the governance point of view, and try to look at this in terms of making this a true competitive advantage, because AI is really just that. It puts the tools in the hands of your employees, of your leaders. It makes it an exciting opportunity for everyone, and it helps you elevate your game. And I just look forward to every day that I get to see where people are going with their requests, what it is that they want to do, and how it is that they're solving problems.
I think for MSPs and partners, I would encourage you to look for integrated platforms that are built for purpose, AI native, that help you focus on streamlining those processes so you can deliver successful and safe, secure outcomes for your customers, right? You don't want to be spending your time integrating a whole bunch of different tools and trying to put AI into those tools. There's plenty of opportunities for really kind of integrated AI native platforms so you can focus on what your customers need, which is safety.
Awesome. Thanks, Siroui and Michelle. I guess that puts me up last, and then I'll hand it to Ali. But for me, I would say start today. If you haven't looked at leveraging some of the AI technologies that are out there in your business, whether that's in your IT department, whether that's moving your objectives and outcomes, as Michelle had spoken about, I would encourage you to take a look at doing so. Years ago, as a co-founder of a company, there was nobody to ask questions to. Now, whew, if you are starting a company, you are starting a business, some one-man shop can do probably what a 10-person shop can do as the already established company. But keep in mind that already established company has wisdom, has the customers, has the momentum. And if you add in some of these technologies, you will continue to accelerate and continue to move forward. But if not, you will kind of miss that moment. The other point, which I'll double click on what Siroui and Michelle had said, which is, come with a privacy first mindset. A lot of the questions here were about, if I type this in an LLM, what happens? Where does the information go? And so being able to have some type of privacy first mindset, thinking out before you actually go and just throw something in LLM, understanding where your data is hugely, hugely important. So with that, if there's anything that the three of us can do for any of the customers and partners on the line, thank you so much for your partnership, your generosity of your time today. We truly, truly appreciate it. Reach out to us if we can help. We're all in this together. And with that, I'm going to hand it to Ali to close it down.
All right. Thank you, everybody. And like Neal mentioned, to all of our customers, prospective customers, and partners and prospective partners, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. Very special thank you to the three of you. You did a wonderful job. We answered a lot of questions today. And thank you again for all your participation, for everyone in all of the questions. Just a reminder, this is recorded. You'll still get the recording in an email from me tomorrow, and we will see you next time. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Happy New Year, everyone.